I always feel really awkward starting videos. Hey! Today's video is a very highly requested one ever since I did my upper body mobility routine. You guys requested a lower body mobility and stretching routine, so here it is. I can't stress how important it is to tend to mobility, especially when you're training glutes like crazy. I know everyone's goal is to build a big booty. In order to ensure that your body is properly recovering and that you're preventing injury is to do mobility drills, stretch, and to have some sort of myofascial release, which is typically done in the form of foam rolling. If you guys are anything like me, then at some point you have totally neglected your mobility / your rehabilitation, and it's super easy to get away with because these form of micro injuries occur over a long period of time, so you might be able to get away with a year or even more than that of training under your belt without really feeling the effects of not having a proper mobility routine tied to your training program. You might be wondering, what's the worst that can happen? If you neglect flexibility and mobility, the least of your worries is that it can cause your muscles to tighten up. You won't get the full range of motion during your exercises, therefore your muscles won't be able to work to their fullest potential, so it's going to limit your ability to build muscle as effectively. On the other end of the spectrum, really tight muscles can cause other muscles to take over that aren't meant to be working, so therefore it can cause injuries in those muscles, or it can pull on the tendons and cause tendonitis, and it can cause you to have to take a lot of time off training. I highly recommend you take one day out of your training regimen to do a full mobility routine for your lower body. It should take approximately 30 to 45 minutes, and I think this is totally necessary. The good thing is that you can actually do this entire routine at home. Just make sure that you have a foam roller and you're good to go. This video and routine is totally comprehensive, so make sure you check out the description below where I've written it all out for you guys. Screenshot it, take it to the gym, or keep it with you ready at home for when you're going to do this mobility routine. If you appreciate this video or you find it useful, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. It does really help my channel. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and click the bell notification. That will let you know when I post another video. If you guys want to see my step-by-step, fully explained, informative lower body mobility routine, then just keep on watching. My lower body rehab routine consists of 4 different sections. I have my warm-up, my foam rolling, my dynamic stretching, and then my static stretching, and we're gonna go through all of them. I always like to warm up before I start foam rolling and stretching, and this is because it gets blood into the muscle, which heats them up, and warming up the muscle actually makes it more flexible and more resistant to injury. I like to do 2 to 3 minutes on the Stairmaster because I find that this gives me a pump throughout my quads, glutes, and my hamstrings. After I warm up, I move on to foam rolling. I like to foam roll in sections, so first being the glutes, second IT band, then the quads, the hip flexors, and the hamstrings and calves. If you foam rolled before, you know it is one of the most painful things of life, but it's the good kind of pain, guys, trust me. Plus, the pain that you're feeling is your muscles and fascia all bunched up and clotted up. So the act of foam rolling is breaking up those bunches and allowing your muscles to stretch out and be free again, so it's very worth it. I started off by sitting my bum right on the foam roller and rolling back and forth, massaging both of my glutes. The more surface area of your body that's on the foam roller, the less it's going to hurt, so sometimes it's better to do both sides at once to kind of warm yourself up, and then I like to move on to each of the glutes, each of the single glutes here. So I'm kind of rolling the glute on its side a little bit, because if you guys watch my comprehensive glute video, glute science video, then you'll know that the glute kind of starts at the spine and then it wraps around to the side of the leg, so it's a diagonally shaped muscle, or the fibers run in a fan shape diagonally, so I'm rolling my muscle in that direction of the fibers. Once I get that all nice and rolled out, then I want to get a deeper foam roll, so I'm going to put my foot up on my opposite leg, and this stretches the fibers in the direction of the fan, as I mentioned, and this is going to just pull the muscle taut so that you can get a nice deeper massage. As you're rolling along the muscle, as you're rolling in the direction of the muscle fibers, the next step is to find any really tight spots, tension spots, and kind of focus on those. So you want to find the really sore spot and hold that spot on the foam roller, rocking back and forth laterally until you feel it release. This is going to be the most painful part of foam rolling, but it's the most effective because as you hold on that spot, you'll feel the pain slowly go away, which is really satisfying, and it means that you've totally released that spot. Then you can kind of roll around and try to find the next tight spot and work on that. So here I am rolling the side of my glute. Trying to find a tension spot, and once I found it, I stay there, hold for a little bit, and then I rock side to side, perpendicular to the direction of the fibers. And then I just finish up by giving the muscle a once over in the direction of the fibers again. In summary, my steps for foam rolling are to roll the muscle top to bottom in the direction of the fibers, hold your weight over tension spots, roll laterally until you start to feel them release. If they're difficult, then roll laterally from side to side until you get rid of them, and then do a once over in the direction of the fiber over the tension spots. And as a bonus, you can repeat these steps over your stretched muscle. Next, I moved on to the IT band. This is going to be the most painful area to foam roll. The IT band, or iliotibial band, isn't actually a muscle. It's a long strip of fascia that connects the muscles of the thigh to the femur bone or the thigh bone, including the gigantic gluteus maximus, which inserts into the IT band, which anchors it to the femur bone. So the IT band will get very, very tight on most people, and it's so important to roll out the bunches and the tension, because if this gets tight, it connects into the knee, so it can cause tightness throughout your entire thigh and can pull on the knee, which can cause knee injury and pain. I use the same techniques for the IT band that are muscle as I just described before. My IT band was really tight near the bottom, near my knee, which actually makes sense because I've been having a little bit of knee pain. It would work really well if I had a lacrosse ball or a massage ball to roll in that specific tension spot, but since I didn't, I actually just took the palm of my hand and massaged it, and this will really help to precisely relieve the tension there. It's just the same as if you were to have sports massage therapist massage out the area for you. I apologize that the sped up footage looks a little bit shaky. It just happens when you speed up the video. I just really wanted to show you guys how much time I actually spend on foam rolling. I do not stop until I've relieved 95% of the tension, because otherwise it's just, you just really haven't made that much progress. So that's just what I like to do, and I thought I would keep it in here to show you guys. Next, I moved on to foam rolling my quads. I just did both at once, as I mentioned before, because this kind of doesn't hurt as much, and if you can relieve that little bit of surface tension, then you can get in deeper by using just one leg at a time, and then this will in turn put more of your body weight on the one leg, and more pressure means more release. So my quads actually were surprisingly not that bad today. They were worse near my knee, so I did try to focus more on that area. Again, the whole point of foam rolling them is to find those tension spots so that you can just stop on them and hold and roll laterally until you get rid of it. My hamstrings were actually the least tight out of any of my leg muscles, so I decided to go straight in by putting as much body weight as possible on my single hamstring. So I've shown two different ways to do this. One by kind of leaning over onto that hamstring, and then one by leaning back and trying to keep all of your body weight up and on the hamstring. The fact that my hamstrings aren't very tight is actually a sign that I should probably focus a little bit more on them, but no worries, that is actually one of my goals for the new year, is to build up my hamstrings. Definitely don't forget your calves. There's a lot of fascia that connect the gastrocnemius, which is the biggest, strongest muscle of the calf, to the ankle joint, so it can get really tight. And tight calves can actually limit your ability to squat and to do hamstring exercises like deadlifts. So it definitely is not worth ignoring them. Moving on to hip flexors, which are always really tight on me. If you're doing any type of wide stance or sumo stance work in your leg routines, then yeah, these are definitely muscles that are going to get really tight. And the worst possible thing is tight hip flexors can pull on the hips and cause tendinitis in the hips, which is really, really painful. I've had it before, so it's definitely worth keeping these in good shape. It's really awkward to get onto the foam roller when you do these, but you kind of just want to lie prone on the ground and then kind of lift your leg up to one side and then place the foam roller lengthwise with your body under your leg rather than trying to like position yourself and get on top of the foam roller. Just move it to where you need it and then just roll side to side, massaging the muscle fibers in the direction that they run. I'm aware this looks super awkward, but as you can see here, I've actually found a tight spot in my hip flexors. I remember it being really painful, and I'm holding on the spot and rocking side to side over the muscle. And yeah, this helped relieve the tension. Here I am holding it. So yeah, I do this with every single muscle group, and I make sure that I hold it until I can't feel the pain anymore, and it really, really works. I feel so nice and fresh for my leg day. By the way, I tried to do my mobility routines not on a leg day, but if I have to, I will do it before my leg day because it makes such a big difference. Once I've foam rolled and been able to mechanically break up all of the blood clotting and the bunched up fascia, then I move on to the stretching portion. I like to start off with dynamic stretching. It sort of stretches your entire lower body all at once. It will help warm the muscles back up again, which is ideal for the static stretching, which is the final section of my mobility and flexibility routine. Here I'm doing the squat and reach stretch. This is one of my favorite dynamic stretches. What you're gonna wanna do is take a wider than shoulder width stance, grab your toes, and then slowly squat down, opening up your hips and pushing with your elbows out on your knees so that you can stretch the inside of your legs or your hip flexors. And then you're gonna wanna hold this for about 10 seconds. Try to keep your chest as big and as puffed out as possible, keeping your spine in a neutral position. You want to keep applying pressure to the inside of your thighs, and you can bounce up and down just to get a better stretch. And then you want to repeat this stretch 3 times. So the dynamic portion is in the actual getting up and out and back into the squat position. Another one of my all-time favorite dynamic stretches is the COSACK squat. So this is an intermediate to an advanced exercise, so don't worry if you can't get it the first time. I really struggled with this one when I first started out, especially because I did have really tight hip flexors and inner thigh muscles. So you just want to take as wide of a stance as possible, and then you're going to side lunge onto one leg. And as you do this, you want to lift the toes up of your opposite leg, moving all of your weight onto your heel. You will necessarily put more weight onto the leg that you're squatting down on, but you still can put some weight on the opposite leg balance. So this is gonna really stretch your hip flexors and your inner quads as well as your inner hamstrings. But since it's a dynamic exercise, you are also going to be using your glutes and your quads, and it just honestly feels amazing. So definitely give it a try. Here I'm showing a beginner way to do this exercise. So I'm holding onto a foam roller here. It's a lot easier if you're using a wooden dowel or like say a barbell, like some sort of pole type thing, so that you can kind of hold onto it to stay upright, but it can pivot side to side with you. Finally, we're at the final part of our lower body rehab routine, which is static stretching. I'm going to show you guys stretches that I do for my hamstrings and hip flexors, my glutes, and my quads. The purpose of static stretching is to actually increase the length of your muscles, and by increasing the length of your muscles, you're increasing your flexibility and thus improving your range of motion, which will help you in all of the exercises you do. The greater the range of motion, the more time under tension, and thus the more damage you can do on a muscle, which are both factors of muscle hypertrophy. Not to mention that most of the time, a better range of motion means better form on your exercises, which will help you build strength and prevent injury. So I'm going to be showing you guys 2 to 3 stretches for each muscle group, ranging between beginner to intermediate to advanced, so that you can pick the right stretch for you, and that might vary per muscle group because you might be more flexible in one group than another. The first stretch I showed you here is a hip flexor stretch, so I like to tuck one leg in and have the other one outwards, trying to make as wide of a stance with my hips as possible, and then I like to just lean forward, stretching that leg that is outstretched. The more I lean into the leg, the deeper the stretch I'm going to get in both my hamstrings and my hip flexors. For an even deeper stretch, you're going to just take your opposite leg and put it behind you, and then still lean forward on your leg that you're stretching. And this is just going to open up your hips a little bit more, and which will allow for a more intense stretch. The most important thing for static stretching is you want to get into a position where you're feeling the stretch in the muscle that you're trying to target, and you just want to feel just enough of a stretch that you do feel a little bit of pain and tension, but you don't want it to be too much stretch so that it hurts or you feel like your muscle is pulling back on itself. Your muscles can actually pull back on themselves when you stretch them too much. This is a protective mechanism. So the best possible thing to do is to stretch just enough to ensure that your muscle is nice and relaxed. You can consciously be aware that your muscle is relaxed, and then you want to slowly feel that pain go away. So you're going to find the stretch and hold that position for 20 to 30 seconds. It's really important that you hold it for at least this long, or until you feel that tension slowly fade away. Once you feel all the tension fade away, it means that you've actually increased that muscle's effective length. So stretching is cumulative, so the more that you stretch, the longer your muscles are going to get, and therefore the more flexible you're going to be. Finally, I'm finishing off my hamstring stretch with just a basic legs out in front, leaning forward stretch. I don't know the names of the stretches, so I just have to describe them like that. Next up are the glute stretches. I pride myself in my glute stretches, so I'm going to show you guys 3 different versions, ranging from the easiest to the deepest stretch. So this first one I'm doing, I have my leg out in front of me as if I was going to be cross-legged, but then I tuck my other leg back behind me in the same bent leg position. This doesn't require as much flexibility, but you can still get a decent stretch in your glutes if you just lean forward towards your knee. I like to do all 3 of these stretches in sequence, so once I complete the easiest stretch, then I'm moving into this intermediate glute stretch. So you're going to have your leg bent in front of you like the last one, but you're going to actually extend your other leg straight out behind you. You're going to try to keep your torso upright, but lean your body weight forward. I think this is called the pigeon pose, but I don't know very much about yoga. I really want to get into yoga in 2018 though. That's definitely another goal of mine. I found my right glute to be extra tight, so I went back to foam rolling to try to loosen it up a little bit more. All of these methods are tools and they don't have to be used in order, so it's really useful if you need to say, for example, like I did here, foam roll a little bit more, release a little bit more tension so that you can go back and do a deeper stretch. That totally worked, and I was able to get both of my glutes to the same flexibility. Okay, so I've shown this one before, but this is my holy grail glute stretch. I need to do this stretch. My glutes get super tight because of how often I train them, so this stretch is the only thing that actually gets rid of all of the tension and increases their flexibility. What I do is very similar to the pigeon pose stretch I showed. Your leg in front is in the same position, but it's just up on a bench, and then your other leg is kneeling kind of back behind you, and then you just want to lean onto the leg that's on the bench, lean forward and push your body weight forward, and that's going to stretch your glute out. Notice when we stretch the glutes, we're both extending the hip and abducting at the hip, and this is because the glutes run in that diagonal fashion from your tailbone to your IT band. So you must take a position that involves both of these articulations to stretch the glutes in the correct direction. Last but not least, we're going to stretch the quad. So the first and the most beginner-friendly quad stretch is this one here. So you're just going to sit kneeling down, and then you're just going to lean your weight backwards. I'm using a foam roller to slowly lean all of my weight backwards until I can lie flat on the ground, and that's gonna get a nice deep stretch in your quads. Your quads cross at both the knee joint and the hip joint, so an ideal quad stretch involves both maximal knee flexion and hip extension. As you can imagine, this stretch is best for stretching the distal quads, the ones closest to your knees, and the ones that cross the knee joint. But the second and deeper stretch that I'm going to show you guys targets more of the proximal quads, or the ones that cross the hip joint, but I do find that it overall gives you a better and more complete stretch of the quads. So for this one, you want to get into a lunge position with one knee on the ground, and then you're going to lean forward and lift up your back leg's foot, and then you're going to squeeze your glute on the back leg in order to thrust your hip forward, and this will allow for a nice deep stretch in the quad, especially, as I said, in the proximal part of the quad or the upper quad. Just in case it's hard for you to imagine, it's actually the back quad that's being stretched. The more that you lunge into this, the deeper the stretch you're going to get. I love this stretch for quads, it's my favorite. Alright guys, that's it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching and for all of your support on my videos thus far. It's so much work, but it's so rewarding when I get to read your guys' comments, so thank you. It means the world to me. Stay tuned for my next few videos, and don't forget, if you haven't asked me a fitness-related question, to ask down below, because I am going to be doing a Q&A soon. And if you guys have any more requests for future videos coming out in the next week, then leave those down below as well. That's all I have for you guys. See you in my next video. Bye!